I wanted to bring you back on here and we'll get into the book that you're launching. Take a step back because you and I catch up from time to time. But something I realized, preparing is that I never really talked to you about how you not only got your hands into so many different things, it's how you choose. This is something a lot of founders really struggle with. It's like, because you're speaking and then you're doing Operation Hero stuff, right? You're writing the book, like,
Yep.
and you're probably doing a million other stuff I don't even know about.
Yeah.
You got the t-shirts, right? All this stuff. So when you started out and broke out onto your own, we'll call it full time, how did you make decisions on what you were going to invest your time and energy?
It really came to what people wanted. So, I started Be Awesome. You were actually a pretty significant influence in me creating a lot of Be Awesome early on, whether you knew it or not. And really the creator of the Be Awesome happened 2 years before in August at a sales meeting when Brian Smith, who you probably know, gave me a
Mhm.
Target book, a journal, that just said "Wake up and be awesome." It was $3. Kept the
Oh,
price tag.
wow.
Kept the price tag on it. But that was just something that I always would tell people: is, hey, just be awesome. Wake up, be awesome. And then came up with the logo, and it was
Do
originally.
you see it behind me
Oh yeah,
on
your
my
coffee mug. Yeah. So I
coffee
mean,
mug?
the reality was, Be Awesome was supposed to be a book. That's all it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be the creation of a book that was going to be. I had started to write. I had about 60 pages in, and it was awful. A sales book, and it was titled "If You Don't Care, You Don't Count." And it was a salesperson's journey into true fulfillment, which it's not fortune, it's fulfillment. And it was just poorly written, and so I would just had this mission of trying to do something different, that was going to be more positive and upbeat and uplifting. The original book was insulting. It was basically saying that most salespeople suck, and that's a true reality, and it's not something to be mean by. But most salespeople aren't that good, and we can't blame them. It's really the sales leaders. There's a lot of bad sales leaders out there, and I was trying to improve that. And so the book was slow to nothing, and you suggest the podcast, and so I started doing a podcast, and then I did episode 3 with Santa Claus in North Pole, Alaska, and found out that there's 3 million underserved children in our country that are homeless and foster care or being mistreated at home, and I bought 10 T-shirts. It was just on a whim. And I was going to sell T-shirts. I had a newborn at home. I had a 10-year-old and a newborn, and my goal was to have these 10 T-shirts, sell them for $25 a piece, and give Santa Claus $250 for the charity of his choice. And by the time I got to him, I'd given 6 of them away, and we decided to just start selling T-shirts and giving $3 to charities that support foster and homeless programs. And we've given money from shirts and merchandise for holidays for the heroes and other things. So it's not a moneymaker by any stretch of the imagination. It might be someday, but people wanted merchandise, and so we've just gone where the revenue goes and what makes the biggest impact in people's lives to make them smile, right? And sometimes it's a T-shirt, sometimes it's a keynote. Hopefully, it's going to be a book. We'll see. But yeah, it was really kind of interesting. The business got started. You know, Ed Rossich one morning called me. He was doing a short 30-mile run, and I had confided in him some of my challenges and things that I wanted to accomplish and where I wanted to be, and kind of gave him the model of it. And he had seen the Be Awesome shirt for the first time on a boat in San Diego. I had rented a, for lack of a better word, a yacht, and I invited him and some other clients and folks for the boat ride, and I Be Awesome shirt on. He was like, "Oh, that's a cool shirt." That was in March, and so in June of 2018, 3 months later, he just calls me and he's like, "Pete, you've been wearing it. It's Be Awesome. The essential elements of kicking ass. That's the name of your business. That's the name of your book. That's the name of everything." And so I just ran with it. I went to LegalZoom, spent $550, started an LLC, got an EIN. Away I went, and you know, June 2018 to March of 2020, we were actually cash flow positive pretty consistently. We had revenue coming in every single month from someplace, and then COVID hit. And COVID hit and crippled us. And yeah, that's
What?
the beginning.
Well, didn't your? But if we and I know keynotes and speaking has been a big portion of this.
Yep.
A lot of that, I mean, and just to maybe help folks that are listening in for the first time and getting to know you, you didn't just call someone up and be like, yeah, I'm going to come on your stage and speak. Like you had built a network of a
Mhm.
lot of years of kind of people trusting you. Can you share about the importance of like being good to people for a lot of years and showing you're an expert and helping them?
Yeah, I mean, the key is you got to be good to people every year, every day, every minute. You don't have the opportunity to not be good to people. But the biggest thing was, you know, you and I worked at the same software company for a period of time. That software company, and when I started in 2004, they gave us these canned presentations for breakouts. And we are supposed to give to every association. Hey, we want to talk about this, this, and this. And so from 2004 to 2009, I probably submitted 200 or 300 requests to speak, and nobody would give me the opportunity. And in May of 2009, Sharon Bruce, Connecticut ASBO, she called me and she's like, hey, I've got a session space for you at our Leadership Institute. Would you fill this spot? And it was like this prime time spot. It was the session after the lunch. So there was lunch, then there was a session, then there was this session, another session. It was close of the day. After lunch, if they're given turkey, everybody's in a coma. Session before the end of the day, that's before happy hour. So that middle session is where you're going to get most bang for your buck. And I was talking about after hours use of buildings. Just such a boring, silly thing. But out of all the speaking topics, that's the one she chose for me to do. And I was like, who in the world is speaking after lunch? This guy's got to be, you know, laughable, right? He's gonna be terrible. Like I'm gonna kill it. And it was all this canned presentation. It was all corporate garbage, basically. And so I go and sit in the person presenter before me, not looking at the program, and literally, I'm sitting in my seat. The lights go down, smoke machines start up, laser lights, two screens pop up, and it says Ironman, triathlete, Olympian, amputee, and it's a guy by the name of, I think it's Paul Martin, and he's the author of One Man's Leg. He lost his leg in a drinking and driving accident and turned into the fastest Ironman triathlete, Olympian amputee, and gave this compelling story. Not a dry eye in the house. I went up on stage and I'm like, "That's a tough one to beat." So I'm just going to talk about after hours use of buildings, and I went completely off the cuff. And when I got done, I thought I did miserable. I was like, "This is awful. Like I can't. No one's ever going to have me back." But when I got done, I had humility and I had enough confidence and appreciation where I just went to Sharon. I said, Sharon, thank you so much for the opportunity. If I can ever talk about anything ever again, I'd be honored. Even if I'll promise I'll do better. And I told her my goal in life now is to get more money and to speak to more people than Paul Martin. And so Sharon's had me back 10 times. She
Mm.
gave me the opportunity in 2014 for me to have my grandmother in the audience who was pushing 90. I think she was, yeah, she was 92, and got to thank her. She's just been amazing. But, the key, this isn't an overnight success, and nothing's an overnight success.
Mhm.
But, there's a saying, I didn't create it, but your net worth is your network. And you want to have a strong one, and you want to have good people. You want to have people that aren't in it to just, give fluff. I mean, if you look at my podcast, if you look at my LinkedIn, if you look at my e-speakers, if you look, those are all real reviews that people put their names on. And I'm grateful for each and every one of them. I personally call them. I write cards. Oh, you can't see them. I got a wall of cards here. I'll send them a handwritten card that says thank you. Um, you have to build that strong network of people that know that you have genuine authenticity in the work that you do and the effort that you want to make. And I take that with all my businesses. I'm three businesses. I've got two that I own, and I have one that the software company that I have equity in, that, I'm their vice president of development. And you just have to always be respectful and have a strong, strong say-do ratio. Don't ever say you're going to do something and not do it. To date, I'm closing on an 800 keynotes, general sessions, and large talk speaking. And it's funny. It was 10 years ago next week. It was the only one I missed. And it was because of the polar vortex. It was, remember, it was SASBO. It was in Charleston, South Carolina, and I was supposed to fly down there on Monday, and the airport was closed for 2 days, and I missed it. That's the only commitment I've ever made to speak that I didn't get to make. I didn't have
That's
contracts. I didn't have a contract. I've been doing paid speaking with Be Awesome. This is going to be 7 years in June. I didn't have an actual speaker's contract for my first 2.5, 3 years, and it was only because someone requested it. It was all just based on my word. They would say, "Hey,
yep,
send me over a contract." I said, "Better yet, I show up. I do a good job." This is the other thing. I have 100% money back guarantee. You don't pay me till I'm done speaking, and if I didn't bring value, you tell me what the amount was. So if I charge you $10,000 for a keynote and I go up there because I'm gonna have a bad day and I know it, if I'm not that good, you tell me what I'm worth and you pay me. And to date, I've gotten 100% payment of 100% of what I've quoted.
pretty good, man. Good. That's a good. That's a good closing ratio.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, if if you believe emphatically enough in what you do, I just had this call with Bender, one of my sales guys on my team for the software company, and we were just having a conversation and we were talking about a deal that's closed one, and they're a client, and I said, did we get the purchase order? And he says, no, you were supposed to. And I'm like, oh, well, he told me he was moving along. Might as well just go ahead. We'll get the purchase order at a later date. You know, I have as close to 100% of people with my software sales have paid, and a purchase order it's never been a worry for me. If I can't trust your word, I sure as heck can't trust your signature. So, and that goes with me. I always tell people that, test my word before you trust my word. I give my home phone number to everybody. I can't
Yeah.
hide from it. I've had that phone number since 1991. Can't hide from it. And I ain't getting rid of it because then I'll forget what my home phone number is.
Yeah. Remember back in the day, you just had to remember a 7-digit number. Now they're,
Yeah.
10 digits.
Yep.
So makes it a lot harder. While we're on it, sort of, you talked about the sales suck, and I
Mm-hmm.
agree with you. I think a lot of sales rep stuff, but let's talk through, again, folks that they're founders, they're trying to grow a business.
Mm-hmm.
What can they glean from that sales suck, don't do it this way? Like, are there 2 or 3 things that come to mind right off the bat of like, I should be focusing on this?
Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, if you're a founder, if you're if you're creating a new business or you're going into a business that you don't know anything about, the first thing you got to do is go see your clients. I mean, that's the biggest thing that leaders miss. I know a sales leader that was given a glorious gift of a very successful company, very good sales organization, large, impressive. 5 years later, probably hasn't seen 5 clients. So what are you going to get out of that? You're going to get jargon and baloney that you get in a boardroom to tell your sales reps on how to perform and what they should do when you really don't even know what the environment looks like that they're selling in. That's the challenge. The challenge is that in my opinion and what I see, and my role has always been the relationship person. I had a role as an evangelist that everybody thought I was out catching roses. No, I wasn't catching roses. I was out catching bullets and arrows because at the time the company had to do a subscription increase. It was the nature of business. I went 16 years without increasing prices. Insurance goes up, utilities go up, salaries go up, everything goes up, and your subscriptions don't. At some point, something's got to break, and so they had to raise subscriptions. No value add, no added enhancement, no improved service, no anything. Just had to increase prices. And so I had to go out there and I had to say to clients, "This sucks. I don't like doing it any more than you like getting it. But here's why, and here's what we're doing it for." And that year that we did it was one of our greatest retention years. It was over 98%. That could have been a huge failure. But that was a lesson I learned 1998, 1998, 1999. I sold water. I had a spring water delivery business with my father. We drove diesel trucks. We had an 18-wheeler that drove 200 miles each way, bringing us, our 5-gallon bottles, and diesel went through the roof. And my dad said, we got to raise prices by 50 cents per bottle. And I was like, oh my God, we're going to lose all of our clients. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. But my dad, he knew our clients. He knew that our clients stood by us. And he always said something to me. Because I was a truck driver. I drove a truck for 7 years. Like literally every morning, 5 a.m., I'd get up, I'd load 5-gallon bottles on a big box truck, and I'd go drive around and deliver water and lug it around. I was also the salesperson. I also went door to door and sold water. But my dad always knew. He would always tell me, because I'd say, I want to get out of this damn truck. I just want to drive a nice car and sell water and have somebody deliver the water. And my dad would always say, as long as your client knows where their money is going, they will always be with you. I was a leader. I was a co-owner in the business, but every time I got out of that truck, I was their water delivery expert. And my title was at your service since 1996. That's the title that I gave myself, at your service. And so, don't go figuring that there's some formula of just, there's a lot of science behind sales, absolutely. But don't think that you can give some canned book to some sales rep and be like, hey, do this and we'll get sales. It doesn't work like that. You have to understand the market. You have to understand the client. You have to understand their environment. And then you put the process in place of, this is step one, this is step two, this is step three. Um, the other piece is this unrealistic expectation that a salesperson understands anything when they come to you, even with sales experience. And I like people without sales experience. I've got two. Two in the last year that came with little to no sales experience, and they're absolute rock stars. I have one that has some sales experience, and he's amazing. But I treat them all differently. That they have
Mhm.
a different way of doing things, and that's something. There's no cookie cutter, right? As much as we'd like to say there is, and there's some trainers that'll give you the idea that, hey, one size fits all for a salesperson. Have them do this, 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 and this, and they'll get the deal done. Not going to happen. I failed as a salesperson on Friday. Significant failure, huge loser on my forehead from a deal that I should have known better in all these years. I still don't get it. I still don't have it all figured out. And there isn't a playbook that could have figured the deal out for me.
Yeah. Well, there's so much of the crap online you see, like, on LinkedIn of, 'cause I was just writing about that this morning, about folks that are just like, "Oh, I can get you 10x the leads and do it,"
Hmm.
like, there's all this automation and AI, and everyone's trying to, like, skirt the system and get shortcuts, and they
Yeah,
think, "Oh, yeah, if I just do more of that, I'm gonna get more sales." I wrote a post this morning that what you just said is, like, top of mind, because it's like, I firmly believe that it's not a numbers game anymore.
no,
I don't like the phrase, "It's a numbers game." It's not, because
you,
if you suck at it,
yeah. So
who cares how many people you talk with?
I've had a very, so I get high pressure salespeople every day, and it's probably the same person that wrote that post that you saw, because we have a lot of similar people. But it was 10x the number of leads. Do you know where I would be with 10x the number of leads? I'd be out of business in 12 months. I'd be out of business. I can't handle what I have now. Like my January for the software company, I'm going to have 20 new logos in my territory. 20. I'm going to have six figures in sales revenue in January. You know the business as well as I know. Nobody does that type of business in January. 10x my leads, and something's got to give. And the quality and caliber of service of what people are going they deserve is important. And I think you just hit me on another thing. The thing that we all talk about is scale and numbers and all the stuff that everybody's talking about. That's all good and fine. But the most important thing is clients' names. Like, when you forget that, they forget you. And that's what what a lot of these people, most of these startups, especially in the tech space, they're already at their exit strategy. They're already thinking about, how do I get 100 million or more sale closed and done? You'll get there. Take care of your clients. Make sure you have a good foundation that you're going to build a culture and values that you're not going to get to when you get to that point where you can take more leads and hire more people, that the people just become a number, because it won't take too long before that number goes away, because the people get it. It's, they just get it. And we've got a competitor in our space. They started a year before us. We're closing in on 1,000 clients. They have 100. And their model, they have churn and burn, turnover of employees, significant turnover employees. They only have a 90% retention rate. We got 100%. If you give us a check, you stay with us. And it's because we've built that foundational importance of the client. We know when they came on. We know when they started. We know when these clients, most of them, we know when they started with a competitor, because a lot of us have been in the business for a long time. We probably know that client better than our competitors know their own clients. So it's important, and figuring out, last thing is figuring out how to make your clients your sales team. I have a sales team of three, right? On paper, I have a sales team of three, but if in my territory, of Eastern Canada, New England, New Jersey, Missouri, Ohio, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Kansas, I've got a sales team of 500. I make every one of my clients a raving fan so that they tell everybody that'll listen. And I'm sitting doing this podcast with you today. I'm not worried about making cold calls. And that's people say all the time, oh, well, you've been in sales for 30 years. Yeah, I've been in sales for 30 years, but I started this in 1997. I got my career in software sales by selling a guy a cell phone with this simple model. It is, if I take care of you and I do such a great job at it, you would be foolish not to tell your friends and family to come buy a phone from me. Because I had a phone book. Most people don't know this that are in sales. We used to sell from a phone book. It was a big yellow pages. It was about this thick. Had every business listed in an area, and you literally would call through it. There was no Salesforce or HubSpot. You'd sit there and you'd cross off the name. You cross off the name, and then you put a check mark if the person wanted to talk to you. Beyond hanging up on you or whatever. So I found very early, take care of clients. They'll take care of you.
Yeah. I'm glad I didn't have to use the phone book when I started in sales.
I just
That's
aged myself. Not that
you did.
my gray beard told you so, but yeah.
God, you make such a good point on that. I was just talking with someone the other day, a founder, and he's like, I asked him because he was like, yeah, I was having struggle. I haven't got a ton of leads in. I'm having struggle bringing in clients. I said, how many clients have you had over the last period of time?
Hmm.
Whatever, a few dozen. When's the last time you talked with them?
Hmm.
Didn't have an answer.
Yep.
And it was like, it was like the aha moment of like, oh crap, yeah, maybe I should be reaching out and just and not just like, hey, how's life? Like, sure, you
Yeah.
can do that, but like, that whole go giver mentality,
Yeah.
right? Be a go giver. Like, always look for those opportunities. You're great at this. I know I've tried to really become good at this. Is like be that connector. Like if I
Hmm.
see like, oh, this could be really interesting for this person I know, and I'm gonna connect them to this other person because it just again it makes the world go round. And I
Yeah.
just don't see a lot of folks doing that as much. It's always like, what's for me instead of actually making about what's for them. I'll get mine eventually if I
Yep.
do well with people, right? It just comes back in spades.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing that people fail to do when they get, that's a great example. Like, just call. How are we doing? Like, how are we doing for you? Are you at or above where you expected to be right now? See, the problem is most companies, they don't want to have that conversation because it's most likely going to be an uncomfortable conversation at some point in time. I'll tell you right now, we had a client a year ago. They asked for a lot, and a lot of it was missed in the sales cycle. So that was my problem child. That was a challenge account that I was at a point where I was like, I don't know that we're going to be able to come to terms. I'll give you your money back. I'll do whatever you want to do. I had those difficult conversations with that client. That client moved on to another education institution. Guess who the first person he called was? It was me. Was the call easy? That was the first call easy to say, I don't know that we can take care of you, or you've got a lot of challenges, or and it all came out when I called and I just said, hey, how's everything, or how are we doing? And it was like, oh, do you have a month? And then I literally was on the phone for an hour with him and uncovered a lot of shortcomings of expectation. It wasn't shortcomings of our product. It was expectation of what he wanted it to do and his team wanted it to do, that it just, nobody could do it. But having that conversation, getting close, leaning in, and being willing to have those difficult talks, we now have a second client, and it's him, right? He went someplace else, and it was the first person he called. So, but yeah, you gotta. I mean, man, the world has just become such a strange place. It's become such a transactional community, right?
Yeah.
And not a relationship community. And people want relationships, especially with AI. I don't know if you've had an AI bot experience yet, but dude, that's creepy stuff. Like, you can literally talk to someone and you don't know that it's an AI bot.
Oh, it's getting good.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And it's coming quick.
very.
But I think that's why the human experience is so important because again, I talk with so many folks that are like, I got to get more leads. And they're doing all this like cold outreach or like, let me do, again, let me use automated and somebody send like 1,000 emails and whatever.
Mhm.
But I'm like, when have you called like people that you've worked with before? Have
Yep.
you asked them how they're doing? Have you asked for referrals?
Yeah.
Did they know any like simple low hanging fruit that I think just folks, I don't know why it's almost like once they close the quote unquote, close the business, it's
Mhm.
on to someone else
Yeah.
instead of nurturing what they have there,
Yes,
farm, nurture the land.
I mean, I was in one of the first SaaS-based software subscription model companies, and we formed it was NCA, new client acquisition, burn the boats, and just keep going. And that I never bought into that. And does it work? Yeah, it works. Works for a period of time. Is it sustainable? No. And that's I think a lot of people know that. I think the conversation with founders is what do you want your business to be? And Les Trackman says it great in his book, Don't F It Up. You can be king or you can be rich. And I think that was said by a number of different people. Do you want to be king? Do you want to be the person that everybody goes to? Do you want this to be a long-standing relationship, possibly generational? Is this something that you want to hang your hat on and end your career with? Or do you want to be rich? Because those are two very different conversations. If you want to be rich, there's plenty of books out there. There's plenty of business models that you can build a business up very quickly, um, make it so that it's worthy of selling, make a whole bunch of money, and go on. But there's this thing called an entrepreneur. That's what they do a lot of, right? They start a business, they build it up, they sell it, they go to the next thing. And so, and there's no slight to it. It's just what do you want to do and what do you want to be, and you have to stand by it, right? I want to be king. I'm okay with not being rich. I'm almost 50 years old. I want to be comfortable, but I want to be king. I want to be someone that people look at and go, that's someone with incredible business integrity. That's someone that I can trust. That's someone I can go to. That's a leader in industry. That's someone that has amazing relationships. It's not, they're saying it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's not that. You want everyone to know you. You want everyone to know you. You want everyone to say that's who you want to talk to. And guess what? A byproduct of trying to be king, someday you might be able to be rich too, because you'll have such a huge network of people that you'll be able to grow your business to places you've never seen before. That's what we're trying to do. That I mean, we're a scrappy, bootstrapped, wholly funded by ourselves software company that's going into our fourth year. We got a state contract in our first year. Entire state, every school district in the state chose us over 5 globally chosen companies. That just doesn't happen, right? That just doesn't happen. But we have credibility, trust, integrity, and we have great vision, and we have core values that we believe in, which is make sure that we're always taking care of our clients, we're always taking care of our team, we're always taking care of our people, and if you take care of your people, they take care of you and your dog.
Yeah. And it will, and just to kind of underscore it one last time, it's so more important nowadays than maybe 5 or 10 years ago because people have lost so much trust.
Yep.
They've given their money
Yep.
and then they've been slighted. So
Yeah.
now they're being a little more selective. Where do I put my money?
Yeah.
And not just my money, now it's my data, it's my information, it's maybe their clients or the people that they're serving, right? And they have to trust that your software not only is going to work, but
Mhm.
it's going to be around and you're not going to like the whole thing with like software prices. We're not going to have time to get into it, nor is it relevant. But like these companies keep jacking up every year. There's a price
Mhm.
increase, and I'm like, what? It? Why?
Mhm.
What are you doing for the? Why are you charging an extra price per year?
Yeah.
5%, 7% increase for what? You haven't done anything, or it's minimal.
Yeah, so I mean, right now there's some justification. I would say prior to 2 years ago, it was really hard to justify regular, significant price increases. If you're increasing, we reserve the right to raise our price no more than 3% per year. We've raised it every year with the exception of one. We've had to. There was just, I mean, when you look at the inflation that's gone on since COVID, I mean, a 2x4 went from $2 to $14, right? Your utility costs, your fuel costs, everything's gone up substantially. And so if you don't have some form of an escalation of some capacity, then one of two things is happening. Either you are charging them too much out of the gate to begin with, and you got enough fat on that, you got enough meat on that bone and not worry about it. Or you're in a race to sell. You're in a race to zero to sell. You're trying to build a client market for somebody else to come in, and that's going to raise the price. But as far as business goes, when you see someone that's in the leading, top 1 to 3 businesses in your market segment, and they start to raise the price, then everybody does the same thing. And then
Yeah.
it's just this like, hey, how far can we go? And there's the acceptable loss model. So if you raise your price by 20%, well, hey, you've had retention from 90 to 99% year over year. Well, guess what? You raise your price by 20%. You can go down to 80%, have the same amount of revenue, less is what some business people would call headaches, and you have less
Yeah.
overhead because you don't need as many people to take care of that. So in a lot of cases, it's if you have the foundational finances to be able to weather that storm. We can't lose a client. Like we lose a client, doesn't matter how much it is right now. It hurts us. Every dollar counts. But if you can raise your prices and go, hey, you know what? If you're let's say you're $1 million company, right? Your $1 million company this year, you raised 20%. Well, you just went to 1.2, right? If you do the same thing, you're 1.2. Guess what? 4 years, if you don't get another client, you're gonna be $2 million company because yearly
Yeah.
subscription. It's no additional heavy lift, no anything like you say. Hey, you didn't do anything. Like when I talked to someone once and they said, "Oh, we're raising our price." I said, "Great. What are you giving the client?" I said, "What?" I said, "Well, if you're going to raise the price, you're going to improve your service because your service has gone down." Nope. You're going to give them enhancements because there haven't been any new enhancements in the product. Nope. What are you giving them? You giving them a new offering? No, we're not giving them anything. We're just raising the price. Like you got to have some
Yeah.
reasoning. You got to have a reason behind the reasoning too. Like QuickBooks, I love and hate QuickBooks. Like they're the only game in town for small business, right? They raise their prices. They raise their prices almost 60% in the last 2 years. And I sent the note. I'm like, is this going to keep happening? Because if so, I'll get spreadsheets. I'll
I'm
do
not
some
quite sure
do
how to
something
help you with
simple.
that.
Oh, that's my smart person they're talking. But they said, well, we're increasing your price. This was the first year. We're increasing your price to give you future enhancements of the product. Well, guess what? No future enhancements after that year. So the second year I come up, hey, what are you doing? Gave me the same answer. Well, finally, in the beginning of the second or third year of my subscription of these increases, they came out with the smart receipt, where it can read the receipt for you and put it all in and populate it better. Great. It's worth every penny. But you got to have reasoning behind that because you can't just if you just keep raising prices, people will
Yeah.
they'll walk away. The industry that I'm in, we started in 1997. There wasn't a lot of significant data other than historical licenses that we could say, hey, someone bought. If we did a moderately okay job, there's a high likelihood they'll stay with us for a period of time. Then in the as SaaS based software came around and predictability, and it was all subscription. It wasn't based on a license that you had to renew to get the most recent version. As that started to compound, in my industry, you know 2018, 2015, 2018, you could say that it was reasonable to say that the average client life was 8 years. So if someone bought, you were going to get eight subscription cycles, and that's how companies determined what the buying, what to pay to buy you out was, based on what the probability of is close to 100% of people renewing by 8 years. I'm now back in the business in 2022. We're seeing people drop their vendor after 6 months, after a year. Like people are tired of putting up with bad service. People don't like contracts. People don't like being sold a bad bill of goods, and they don't have patience for a bad time. And I love it. I always tell people, don't ever give good money to bad people, and you never have a good. There's no way to have a good outcome with a bad
Yeah.
company. You just can't. And trust your gut.
Well, and last point on that, it kind of circles right around what we were talking about earlier is like talk to your clients.
Hmm.
Do good by them. Don't just talk to them only when the price is increasing or the invoices do. Because that's when
Yeah,
most people like, oh, invoice is up. Let me contact them. And that's the first time you talk to them in 6 months or 12 months. It's like,
yeah,
what,
yeah.
what do you expect?
I had a process in place, and you know, my thing is, whenever I would go on the road, all the way back to 1997, I would always print out a couple of clients' names and numbers, and just on my windshield time, I'd just call and just be like, "Hey, just checking in, just seeing how everything's going." The fact that I'm calling to not sell them anything, and that I care about how they're doing and how we're doing for them, yeah, that expedites the client for life cycle that you wish for. It's just, I mean, when you think about, there is not a person. So if the CEO of Lowe's can respond to me because of a faulty refrigerator and freezer that I emailed them, or some of these other executives that I've reached out to that I've purchased as a consumer, business to consumer, little guy, there isn't a leader in industry anywhere that can't tell me that they can't find 5 minutes a week to call one client. That's 52 clients they could touch in a year. And that's 52 references you can get. I mean, I don't know what the real statistic is, but the number is anywhere between, depending on who you talk to, 78 and 90% of clients would give you a reference, and only 12% of people do ask for it.
Yeah.
So I love the fact. I just found this little statistic. My number one references this year so far to date. My competitors. I went and looked this weekend. Out of the top 5 competitors I have in my space, on average, 32% of the case studies on their websites are clients of ours today. If you don't talk to your clients, you don't know that you lost them. So just one of
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah. That's a big exclamation point. I wanted to make sure, because we're gonna go down the rabbit hole. We can stay here for 3 hours. I know you and
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
but just to keep it tight for everyone, because you should come back and talk deeper about some of this stuff.
yeah,
I do want to get to, because kind of the premise, the reason we are going to talk, like, oh, Peach, let me have you on, is because we've been talking about this book.
yeah,
You've told me dozen times, I'm writing a book, Brian, and
yeah.
then
How many have you written
you know,
since then?
yeah, I have a few, but you're doing it.
Yeah,
This is
yeah. It's done.
it's launching. It's
That's
launching. Let me see the.
it's done. This is the original 3-ring binder, the actual
All
book.
right.
Uh,
That should be how you sell it. The 3 room.
yeah, 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 exactly. You can take it in, take it out. Yeah, no digital version, just yeah, 3-hole
The
punch.
analog. The analog. Going back to the analog.
Yeah,
Wait, tell me about the. I want to learn a little bit about the book, maybe some of the takeaways from it. But
yeah,
how did you get to this point? Like, how did you finally
yeah.
just get started and be like, all right, I'm doing it?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the get started piece when we would talk. Was so first of all, Be Awesome was originally Be Awesome: The Essential Elements to Kicking Ass, and it was the idea and the premise that I had a good life, which I do. Not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it was really my life example of what I did to kick ass every day, and it was a challenge. Like, writing about yourself is hard, and I struggle with it. And then that was 2018 to 2020. 2020 hit, COVID happened, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna have all this time on my hands, get to writing, and mental health became a real thing. Like, people were hurting, and you could see it. I mean, 1 in 3 people today is living with a challenge that is debilitating or keeping them from being their absolute best selves. And so I created You Are Awesome, and I was like, I'll just write stories about people and remind everyone how awesome they are, because this is a blessing. It's an amazing blessing that we have. I'm actually I left. The reason you said I was, when before we started recording, you said, hey, you all right? You got a lot going on. I just literally walked in from my mother's godmother's wake and funeral. Um, we have this amazing thing called the dash that we get to live. It's this time between our birth and our death is the dash on your tombstone, and that's yours, and you make the most of it. And so I was like, man, that's what I'll do. And so for 2020 to 2022, I'm like, I'm just writing about people, just general stories. I don't know if people are going to like it. And in the meantime, I was with during COVID. I always invest in myself. Every year, I spend a couple $1,000s, whether it's Tony Robbins or a program of some sort of benefiting myself, a $4 book, right? I invest in myself pretty significantly professionally to be better every single year. And when COVID hit, I couldn't do any of those things because we were all locked in. So someone had introduced to me Jesse Itzler's Build Your Life Resume. It was a $1,500 one a month meeting, virtual meeting with Jesse. For those that don't know who Jesse Itzler is, he started Marquis Jet, sold it for a couple $1 billion to Warren Buffett, part owner of the Atlanta Hawks, endurance runner, just a highly successful, married Sarah Blakely, who was owner of Spanx. So combined, they probably have a net worth of $7 or $8 billion.
I was gonna say, had David Goggins live
Yeah,
with
had
them for
David
30 years.
Goggins live with them. They're living with a SEAL. Just kind of an interesting dude. And so for $1,500, I was with a little over 1,000 other people. That was everyone from love him or hate him. Governor Newsom in California was one of the members, the CEO of Dude Wipes, and then people like me. And on March 13th, 2022, I guess it was, a guy by the name of Mark Resnick put on the listserv that today's my birthday, and I'm launching my first book, 10 Days with Dad, and it's a book about his dad having Alzheimer's. Well, my dad's been living with dementia for many years now, and I had sent him a note, and I just said, "Hey, my dad's got dementia. I'm buying 10 copies of your book. Happy birthday! I see that you sell merchandise. I'd love to talk to you about that too, because I have a merchandise business." And he lives 2 towns over from me, as luck would have it. And life's all about interesting signs and what you take. Just get started by taking initiative, taking action. And we kind of went back and forth, and then nothing happened. And then that summer, August of 2022, I'm listening to a podcast, David Cook's from Paralysis to Purpose. David lives in Milwaukee, and was paralyzed at age 14. And I'm listening to his podcast, and he's like, "I'd like to welcome today's guest, Mark Resnick." And so I immediately called Cooks. I'm like, "Dude, how do you know Mark Resnick?" He says, "How do you know?" I said, "I don't. He lives 2 towns over. I want to do some stuff with merchandise. I want to talk to him about how he wrote a book, because I really think I'm ready." He goes, "It's my brother-in-law." So
Mm.
I called Resnick and I said, "Hey, we got to meet." We went to Panera Bread in Walpole. We sat down. The first thing he said is, "Why do you want to write a book?" And I said, I often give talks and people want more. Or I'll often tell a story and someone will say, "That explains so many things," or something, clicks. And so he says, "All right, I'm going to help you write the book." And so we spent the next year just kind of going back and forth. I would write, a chapter, or I'd write my thoughts down, or I'd, send them a recording or something, say, "What do you think about this for a chapter?" And it wasn't until February of last year we were in Miramichi, New Brunswick. We went to the National Curling Championships, which is pretty cool to watch. It's kind of
Riveting, riveting.
anticlimactic, pushing the rocks, um, but he and I we were kind of at an impasse. We're like, "Is this thing going to actually happen?" And we sat down and we kind of mapped this whole thing out. And we're like, "This is it. This is the book. The book is Be Awesome: The Essential Elements to Living Your Life with Grace." And it was trying to figure out the pieces of my life that make things awesome. And grace is gratitude, resilience, action, consistency, and empowerment. And it's those pieces and those relatable stories that I give that I think anybody that takes that, they can have a better day. Like that's all we want, right? Is we just want our day to be better, no matter what that day looks like. We want it to be better. I mean, my youngest son always says, "Today's the best day ever." I'm like, "I thought you said that yesterday." He says, "It was. That was the best day ever until today." And that's what we want to do. We're try to get the best day ever that we can. So yeah,
Wow.
so we got to work. Mark became my co-author. He actually started his own publishing aid. So in the course of it'll be 13 months when we started to when the book will be released. We've co-authored a book. He started a publishing company where I'm his first book that he's going to release, and he's got, I think, 3 or 5 on queue for release for the rest of this year. And it's been a wild ride. As you know, the book writing is a very interesting beast, especially with me. It's very vulnerable. Like my life's in this. Like
Yeah.
anyone in the world, like that's the hardest thing to think about. Anyone in the world is going to be able to go to a bookstore, get this book of 170 or so pages, and they will have a huge insight of my life and my experiences and things about it. I mean, my second chapter, it's titled "First Date, First Wake," and it's a story about my first. I went on a date with a girl, and someone in our school passed away, and we ended up going on the first date to the wake. And the story will make you nuts. Like it's crazy what happened at the wake. That was a eye-opening experience for me that really transformed the way that I try to be with people. I'm not perfect, and that's the big thing about, you know everybody thinks that because my says "Be Awesome" or "You are awesome" or "Everything's awesome." Everything's
Mm.
far from awesome, and I am a huge work in progress. And I have lots of days that I'm probably anything but. So that's a big takeaway for folks, is that my second book might be Flawsome. Be flawed and be okay with it.
Well, I mean, I think "Be Awesome" though is I mean, you could think of it more as just an optimistic
Hmm.
mindset because yeah, life does suck at times and we
Yep.
go through these hills and valleys. And I mean, and it's not even just like I won't go into the diatribe of like something even that was like earlier today that I was thinking about, but like the hills and valleys have hills and valleys. Like,
Hmm.
we have because we think like these big tragedies and things, but then even in our life, like, oh man, that was a shitty presentation, or that sucked, or
Right.
you're not good enough to do that. Like a little small stuff that gets in the cracks, and
Right.
all of a sudden over time. So I think just thinking, hey, you know what? This is awesome. This opportunity I have, or yeah, this is not the best thing that happened to me,
Yep.
but how do I look at it as a learning experience or a lesson or whatever? Because suffering can be good
Yeah.
because it makes it better,
So
right?
yeah, I mean, I think suffering can be good at times. I think that sometimes we look at it and we feel like we don't deserve it, and we don't. Nobody deserves to suffer. But I think that there's so much learning that can take place with challenges and with difficulties that come into our lives, and those hills and valleys, right? They're all measured differently, right? Like think about it. Like we couldn't have anything happen worse than 9/11. Right? And then all of a sudden, I was a 20 something year old young single guy, couldn't think, that's the worst thing that could ever happen. And then all of a sudden you have all these other things that just, you're like, oh my God, is it worse? Is that worse? Is this worse? Like, and it's funny because, that measurement is always, I'm fortunate. I have people that have had to embrace some pretty tough suck over their life, right? One of them's Aaron Ralston. I just told the story the other day to him. I was like, dude, you put me in my place. Aaron Ralston is the real life 127 hours, right? He had to remove his own arm after being stuck to a crevasse in Blue John Canyon for 127 hours. He wrote his own death certificate on the wall, right? And he removed his own arm, got out, lived another day. Well, in that whole period of 127 hours, he had to do some really tough stuff that most people probably wouldn't think of doing. And so it was funny. I was in a valley one day that I thought couldn't be any worse for me. Life couldn't have been any harder or anything else. And telling Ralston, he says, "Yeah, it's just like drinking your own urine." I was like, "What?" He's like, "It's just like drinking your own urine." It's like, it's nothing to do like drinking your own urine. What are you nuts? He's like, that's what I had to do. That was a bad day. That was a valley for me. And so, perspective of where you're at and how bad it is or how good it is, it's all perspective, right? And if you can put it into something and think about a time that it was like, I mean, think about this. Life couldn't have gotten any worse or any more stressful because somebody forgot to put a number and a code and Y2K was happening. Remember that? End of the world was happening. Remember all the stress we felt on that?
Oh yeah.
Now it's,
I knew what was going to happen
yeah,
once the new year
it's
turns
all coming.
over.
It's all coming. I had my spring water sales in the month of December of 1999 was almost 10,000% higher than any other previous month. We were literally selling water by trailer loads. We had tractor trailers being delivered to buildings because they thought that water sources were not going to be available. It was unreal. It was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. And then guess what? 1201 happened. Miraculous. Life has gone on since.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy. What one, congrats on getting the book out, dude. That's a huge accomplishment. I know
Yeah.
it's a big step and something you've been wanting to do. So
No, thank you.
it's
And we've got
I gotta
10,000.
realize.
We've got a commitment of 10,000 copies, and we don't even have a mechanism to charge people yet. We're still working on all the back end stuff, and we have people calling every single day that are committing to, a copy for each attendee at a conference that I'm doing a keynote, a company that they want to give it to all their employees, a small business that wants to have 25 copies. They want to buy 25 copies at a time and have them banded with their corporate logo. And so we built a sponsorship program, legacy sponsorship program. We're going to put people's company names in the back of the book, and we're going to have them on our podcast, and we're going to do all sorts of different things. We're just getting a ton of traction. It's I pinch myself really because I was like, my mother will probably be the only person that buys a copy. Like I'm sure you thought about it. It's like, is anybody going to actually buy this stuff? Are they going to read it? Are they going to, is this because there's a ton of time invested? Is my time going to be worth? Is the juice going to be worth the squeeze at the end of the day? Does this make
Yeah.
sense? And to launch a book and have 10,000 copies already earmarked is it's crazy. Which I don't know if you know if you've confirmed this factoid or not, but this is what I was told is less than 1% of books actually sell 1,000 copies.
I could probably see that true in the especially in the self-publishing
Yeah,
world that we are. Sure, yeah,
yeah,
that probably makes sense. I mean, yeah, I think it's great, and again, at the end of the day, it goes back to your mission. Like, what are you trying to drive forward, right?
hmm,
If it sold one copy
yeah,
and that person, it's kind of like, hey, okay,
yeah.
someone needed to hear that story. Maybe it saves their lives. Maybe it helps them with do something great. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, until you have the first until you have the first copy sold, you worry
Well, you
about
need it
selling you worry about
right
selling
away.
the first one. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, get it something,
Yeah.
get something.
Yeah.
Snail mail, go back to, like, what they how I used to get the CDs, used to get through the Columbia.
Oh yeah.
Remember they you had to fill out the thing and mail in
Oh
the
my
check?
god. And it was like, yeah, you got 10 for a penny, and then you paid $27 for everyone thereafter, and all you do is call and cancel, but you never wanted to. And then
Yeah.
they would just automatically send it. Oh yeah, I got a whole stack of those. Thank God.
Peach,
Thank
it's
God
been a
took
lot of
away the CD.
yeah, man, that's been a lot of fun. Any closing remarks, action items to encourage the listeners, a
Yeah.
challenge, anything like that to maybe as a lasting note of the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, any of your listeners, you're the real deal. You have been a huge impact. You and I only talk a couple times a year for the last couple of years, but when every conversation, there's some nugget that I take out of it, or there's just some encouragement. And so, make sure you have people, even if they're people that you only get to touch a couple times a year, on the phone or in person or fax, email, whatever. Make sure that they're good people. Make sure that they have, the best intentions for you. I mean, I was saying it, I don't know if it's on the recording or not, but I was episode 48 and you're closing on 500. Like, that's amazing. And so your say do ratio is solid. You could have said, hey, you got to go do this, this, and this. And you could have ended at episode 49. And I'm sure there were times that you were doing this podcast because you don't make money on it, or you don't make a lot of money on it. You don't make money
Right.
directly on it. You can make money from byproduct and everything else, but you stay with it. And so I would tell all your listeners, listen to every episode intently, and your intention is to have more people get somewhere, to get where they want to be. Um, and don't quit. Like, don't I can tell you, I was ready to quit in 2020. We went from having revenue every month for 2+ years, and or 2 years, and we had 72 days. We didn't even sell a sticker, right? We didn't even make $2. We had 38 of 39 keynotes canceled. I had 21 committed in kind keynotes, and lost my job that was supposed to pay for those, and I honored all of them. So I would tell you to be honorable even when it's difficult. Like, make the right choices because they're the right choices, even if they might be painful ones, even if they're financially going to be a temporary setback. Because all those people that I honored that freebie that cost me money, they've all stayed in touch, and I can tell you all, I would bet money that all of them will buy a number of books or have me back for a talk or do something. So stay true to yourself, and don't fall. If you're a young salesperson, because I'm guessing you have a lot of young professionals that listen to you, if you question something, ask questions, right? If you don't feel good about something, ask for justification on it. So that you want to learn the right way, and you want to get bumps and bruises, but there's a lot of people out there I mean, I tell my team all the time, like, I want you guys to fall. I just don't want you to fall hard. I want you to learn lessons, and that's sometimes the best way to learn in sales is by failing. I had one of my young sales reps. They made a critical flaw. You're gonna laugh at this. And it was completely in the body of an email. He said, there was a response by the prospective client, and she had a couple of bullet points of things that she absolutely had to have. And he just wrote, "I'm 100% confident that I believe we can fill those needs." I believe was not even paid attention to the 100% confident. And that was a learning lesson for that young sales professional, that he now knows you never say that, because it hurt bad when he fell on that sword, which I fell on ultimately. I always tell my teams, there's three things you can't do with a prospective client or a client. Can't go to the hospital with them. Don't get hurt. Don't do something dumb and get hurt with them. As funny as it might be to some people, don't go to jail with them. Like don't spend a night in jail with the prospective client or client. I mean, do the right things when you're out, and don't tell them to f off. Treat them with respect and kindness. Everything else we can fix. Um, but the young sales professionals, find mentors. And the reality with finding a mentor is those younger sales professionals, they're a mentor to that mentor. That's a mentor mentee back and forth, because I mentored a young man from India. Uh, he taught me so much more than I taught him, and but it is a very rewarding both ways thing. So, and last but not least, talk to your clients. If you're a business, talk to your clients. Treat them as people. Treat them as humans. It's always like you say. Everyone says, well, treat people like you'd want them to treat your grandparents. Do that, right? And how would you want people to treat your grandparents? With respect, with honor, with dignity, and with making sure that they're taken care of, right? They're not waiting to push a button on the lifeline to call somebody that they don't know to talk to them. So, and I just appreciate the honor to be on here and to have two episodes with animals. So I don't know what I'm gonna bring. If there's a third, I don't know how I one up this.
No.
We adopted this guy from the MSPCA 2 weeks ago on a whim. He's supposed to be a bloodhound, but he's not. And he's very, very needy. He always needs to be touching somebody, or otherwise he's making noise or harassing the dogs and cats. So Bowie's just been sitting on my lap sleeping.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal.
I
So
told you, man. I told you.
you're right. You were right. He was phenomenal. He didn't even know he was there most of the
He
time.
snored
So.
twice, and I tried to muffle it.
Dude, always appreciate it, man. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for coming on and chatting through this. This was a lot of fun.
No, appreciate the honor, and keep up the good work, man. You're doing awesome stuff, and you're making an impact. I'm sure you hear it from a lot of people, but you've made a positive impact, lasting positive impact in my life, and forever grateful for it.